people have been telling me in my last video to try ATF in the oil. Well, not full, it still has oil inside the engine. Okay, we're just gonna add 1 quart of ATF, and we saw how nasty it looked underneath the valve cover. Let's go ahead and see if ATF is gonna make a difference. And this is how I know that they're still gonna be driving this car, is because whenever it's off of idle, like you're just driving around normally, it drives fine. Once we pull that valve cover off, we'll see if the ATF made any difference, and of course it'll all get flushed out later on. One thing I did notice is this thing is lacking in power, and that makes sense because the ECM doesn't want to control the solenoids. Okay, so I mean, cruising around town, it's perfectly fine, going to get groceries, whatever, but if you're gonna enter in the Daytona, forget about it. Doesn't have much power. You could go ahead and floor it, and it's not really going anywhere. It's pretty slow. I'm back with this Chevy Malibu, and it's gonna get fixed. I gave the owner my best recommendation as far as what to do on this thing, and I recommended that she changes the engine because it's just so much sludge build up in this engine. We don't know what else is going to happen in the future, but obviously replacing an engine costs more than just changing the timing components on it. So that's what we're going to do. She wants to change the timing components on it and cross her fingers and say 3 Hail Marys. So far I removed the valve cover, obviously, and the ignition coils, the spark plugs, the 2 solenoids that go right here, the timing chain guide that sits on top right here. Took off the air box and anything else that's in my way, and now I'm about to jack up the car, remove this wheel so I could get this engine mount out of the way and support the engine, and just keep taking more things off. I've taken out all of the timing components off of the engine. You can see I got everything laid out right here. Come over to the chain first. Try to line up the new chain with the old chain as best as I could. Just gonna work it down, and you can see how the old chain is just a hair longer, nothing major. Of course, the car still ran fine once you got on it. Like once you start accelerating and you get up to speed, the engine ran fine. It's just at idle, it stumbled, wasn't all that great, and then on top of that, all the noise that was coming from the engine. And the reason for that is, okay, so you can see the old chain, it's just a hair longer, nothing major. But if we come over to the timing guides here, on the left side, you can see that's broken. From the bottom, it's starting to separate. It is not supposed to separate. This thing is stuck on there nice and solid. On the right side, this timing guide is just straight up broken. You can see it, big chunk missing off of there that we do have right here. And the biggest thing is you can see this whole top half of the guide is completely missing. It's just torn off, and that's what it should look like. Of course, we have a new tensioner. We have a new sprocket for the crankshaft, a new upper guide, and new solenoids. Okay, also new bolts for the 2 cam phasers. I think I got them in the right order. So this is going to be the exhaust side, that's the intake side, and they came with new bolts for each one. So that's all set. I also have new gaskets for the timing cover. So at this point, it's just a matter of cleaning up a little bit and start putting everything back together. Thing to keep in mind or keep an eye out for that's really important is this oil nozzle. Okay, it sits like somewhere right there. All right, and the new kit came with a new one, and if you read the paperwork that's included with it, it says that this one is redesigned to have a higher flow rate than normal. So this one, I put it in my mouth and blow through it, you know, the classic BJ, and then I grabbed the old one and I tried blowing on the same port, and we get absolutely nothing out of it. This thing is clogged, and that's what contributes to timing chain failures like this, because there's so much gunk in this engine. Things don't normally get oiled like they should be. Major issue, you should look out for things like this. If we take a closer look at where that nozzle goes, which is right there, you can see we do have oil coming out of it. So it is flowing, but I'm going to go ahead and put a vacuum pump on it and make sure we could get oil coming out of that, even though we could see it is. But I just want to confirm. So that tells me that there is oil flowing through that port right there. It's just this piece is clogged. grabbed my vacuum pump here. I put this end on the port and I started pumping, and I saw a nice stream of oil coming out of it, so I know for sure that port is not clogged. We're just gonna go ahead and slap the new part on it. Yeah, this is crazy. You know, it has such a small nozzle on it. With the amount of gunk in this engine, of course something like this would clog up. I can't even blame the part at this point. I have all of the timing components already installed, the tensioners on it, everything's pretty much good to go. So on this side you can see the diamond on the sprocket lines up with the gold link on the chain. On this side, the diamond on the sprocket lines up with the black link on the chain. And if we go onto the crank, you can see the black link lines up with the dot that's on this sprocket. And that's how you drop your camera. Alright, so at this point, like I said, I already got everything in it. The tensioner's in it. I've already engaged the tensioner, so it has tension on the chain. Everything's good to go. What I'm going to do now is turn the engine over by hand, make sure it rotates nice and smooth. It should, because I took all the spark plugs out of it. So that's it. I made sure each of the camshafts rotated twice. No issues at all. The engine was very smooth. This side of the chain has plenty of tension on it. And of course, the right side is going to be nice and tight. And up here, nice and tight. Just how it should be. No slop anywhere. So that's good. I'm really happy to see this. And now more cleaning and get the surfaces ready for the new gaskets. I figured while I was in here, it's a good idea to look at the balance shaft, guides, chain, and tensioner. You can see I already removed the tensioner. It was sitting right there. And the reason for that is because when I pushed up on the guide against the tensioner, there was a lot of play in it. And I was like, that's not good. And the guides feel a little loose. Honestly, guys, if this were me, all of this would have got replaced all at once. You know, both the chains, all the guides, the water pump, everything. Just knock it all out at once. But again, when a customer is on a budget, it's kind of hard to keep pushing things, right? It's kind of hard to say, okay, you need this and this and this and this and that. So I took this off because I figured since the issue that we have in this engine with all this gunk, I checked the oil port coming to the back of this thing, and it seems to be... It has a steady flow of oil coming out of it, but I'll go ahead and check it just to be sure, make sure it's cleaned out. But this thing right here was really rough. I mean, sometimes I couldn't even push in the piston, and if I did push it in, it wouldn't return. And there was just so much gunk inside of here. There's a hole right there. So I sprayed brake parts cleaner inside of there, and it was coming out the bottom side right here. And there was so much gunk and grit coming out of this thing. I think I went through a whole bottle of brake parts cleaner just trying to get this thing cleaned out. And now it's at a point where every time I push it in, it comes back out. Okay. So honestly, I would prefer to replace this, but we just don't have a new part. But I feel better about taking this off, cleaning it out, and making sure that the piston actually works inside of here. Because before, it wasn't. There was so much slack on that chain as well. It was crazy. I knew I couldn't just leave it like that. So now this is all cleaned up, I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit more cleaning. I got the tensioner installed, as you can see. And if I push up on this guide right here, you can see it actually returns now. It's not a lot of pressure, but it actually pushes back. Before I took this apart, if I pushed up on this guide, all of a sudden the piston would stay inside of the tensioner, and this thing was just slopping around all crazy. And then here goes the guide that I'm not really happy about. You can see, I don't know, to me it just seems like a little bit too much play, but whatever. But you guys know how it is. Oh, I just need the car fixed so it'll last me one more year. 3 years later, they still got the same freaking car. I just peeled off the old gasket off of the timing cover. So now I'm just going to go ahead and clean this up. And isn't this the most satisfying thing ever? Oh, look at that. Now, of course, I don't have to do this. This is just me enjoying myself at this point. The gasket set also came with a new crank seal, so I went ahead and popped the new one on already. Alright, so I got both mating surfaces all cleaned up for the timing cover and the block side. The gasket gets hung on the block because it has the dowels sticking out of them. Alright guys, we are in the home stretch here. As you can see, got everything down there installed. Serpentine belt is on. All I pretty much have to do is finish cleaning up the surface, which you can see I've already made a nice dent and it's coming out real nice. So far, this is the crap that I've cleaned off of this surface right here, just enough to get the gasket on there nicely and make sure it's gonna seal. Yeah, so I still got more to do, but yeah, that's horrible. Now, because of the state of this engine, I want this timing chain to get oil as fast as possible, so I'm just gonna pour some new oil right here on the chain. Nothing crazy, just to get it started. Have some happy little bushes. There we go. Drink up, little buddy. I think it's good enough to go ahead and put the valve cover gasket on it. Is it perfect? No, but this thing is just hell to deal with. So you can see this nasty. I'm gonna show you how tacky this stuff is. And you know how I poured the ATF into the engine? I want to see if that really works. So now that the car is going to be driven, you know, I'm going to have her come back after X amount of time to do an oil change, and I'm going to pull the valve cover off once again. So I already took a few pictures of the valve cover and how everything looks underneath here. Yeah, when she comes back after X amount of miles to do an oil change, I'll pull the valve cover off and take another look at it, see if the ATF is doing anything. But this stuff, okay, that ATF is going to have to work really hard because this is what's caked on inside of there. So let me go ahead and just press it up against my my scraper here. Okay, you can see I have a nice chunk of it on there. So let me go ahead and try to get this off. And I'm not exaggerating, I really am trying to get it off. Yeah. Oh wait, there it goes. That took a good amount of force to get this thing to just fly off of here. I mean, this stuff is really caked on. So let's see if that ATF does anything. Alright, so it is the moment of truth. It's like 98% put back together, minus like little brackets like that. I got one, and there's one more right there. 2 brackets I have to put back on. But other than that, everything else to put, oh, an air filter. But I just want to make sure it runs tonight, because it's pushing almost 10 p.m. and I just want to make sure it runs before I go in the house, and then I'll finish it off tomorrow. So I've reconnected the battery, and I think I plugged everything in. Come on, baby. Alright. See, I'm so nervous. I got butterfingers. Nah, it'll be fine. I got faith. Alright. Oh yeah, first try, and the engine is absolutely quiet. Let's go listen to this, guys. Listen to this. It's not even the same car anymore. Absolutely quiet. I love it. Yes. Now I could go home. Well, I'm already home, but now I could go in the house and sleep tonight like a baby. That's amazing. Look at that. Perfectly quiet. Sounds amazing. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off. And that's it. Turn it off, and I'll finish it up tomorrow. To go out for my first test drive, but before I do that, let's look at the camshaft data that we were looking at before. You can see at idle, everything is still at 0.50, basically nothing. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit the accelerator pedal real fast. Now you can see right up top, our desired exhaust is 12.3 and our actual exhaust is 12.1. Okay, so you can see they are matching. As far as the intake side, I could only get it to move while I was driving. If you remember at the beginning of the video, this thing had no power while driving. It was completely sluggish. You could push the pedal all the way to the floor and it just had no power. Okay, so let's try it out now. I can already tell
a big difference. Now I'm not gonna go speeding in anyone's car, but I can tell you this much: it actually has all of its power back now. We'll just do a few more pulls in it. Yeah, the engine sounds good. It's running good. No hiccups. So far, no check engine light. You know, I don't know if this car, I can't remember if this car had any other issues going on with it that would cause the check engine light to turn back on. Okay. Yep, it has all its power back. Good, I'm happy. Everything sounds good, it runs good. That's it. I'm gonna go ahead and call the owner, give it back to her. She could probably take it to work today. And like I said, I'll keep you guys updated when it comes back for another oil change. I'll go ahead and pull that valve cover off, and we'll take a look at everything and see if the ATF did anything to clean up all that sludge.